Hi everybody, welcome. Hope you can hear me okay. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're dialing in from, and welcome to another Dealroom webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the tech ecosystem life cycle. My name's Aoife Morrin. I'm the head of ecosystem growth here at Dealroom. We're very excited. I think we have a bit over 250 people on the call today. So excited to have you all and hear a little bit about your ecosystems as well. So today we're going to talk about the ecosystem life cycle and whether you are building an ecosystem yourself or thinking about how to manage one better, or curious to know how other people are doing it. I think this is going to be a good session for you. We know that no two ecosystems are the same, but many do follow a similar path and encounter common challenges as they scale and grow, just in the same way companies do, I suppose. So whether it's capital or talent or policy making or strategic priorities, there are, I think, common challenges across the board. What have we got planned for today? So over the next hour, my colleague Orla Browne, head of insights here at Dealroom, and I are going to go over these phases of growth. So including when these ecosystems can decline and then renew again. So it's not always linear. We'll talk a bit about that. We'll show you then a useful model around assessing ecosystem life cycle and the development of your own ecosystem. So what you might want to focus on depending on what stage you're at, and how to use data to inform your decision making. And then lastly, which I'm very excited about, we will talk to one of our ecosystem partners, Joshua Hawkins, Assistant Director at Midlands Innovation, about how he's leveraging data and putting some of these things into practice. So just a wee bit of housekeeping, I suppose, before we start. There is a chat box, so do feel free to put in your questions there as we're going through the session. We will save some time at the end to go through them. Also, this session is being recorded, so if you miss any wee bit, we will send you the link after to the recording and the slides. So that's it from me. We will now go over to Orla.
I also do let us know where you're dialing in from. We've already got people saying they are dialing in from Ethiopia and Ghent and Cambridge and Nordic Innovation House in Silicon Valley.
Nice.
Czech Startup Association and lots of other places. So
cool.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
As Aoife said, we'll try and answer some questions as we're going along as well. So we'll try and keep an eye on the chat, or if not, then we'll try and get to them at the end.
Yeah.
Welcome, Elizabeth from in British Columbia.
Welcome.
So this we're going to go over a little bit on startup ecosystem life cycles. First of all. I think so. The first maybe place to start is on why startups matter, why measuring and tracking and supporting these ecosystems. So I'll be very brief here, but why, starting at the beginning of why startups matter in the first place. Well, startups collectively have generated over 55 trillion in value. These are companies that are VC backed and founded since 1990. So this is not a small bit of economies, but a massive central part of our economies that's also extremely fast growing. If you look at that growth in a decade, more than 10x. And these are often the most innovative and high growth and job creating and value creating companies and parts of our economy. So in a nutshell, 55 trillion and more than 10x in 10 years. That's kind of why we all are in this business. And then on top of that, it's actually accelerating. So startups that are most recently founded in between 2020 and 2025, they have reached the same level of value creation as their older peers at an earlier stage. So that you can see the different lines there for for the value created of these different cohorts, and 2020 to 2025 get there quicker. It's an even steeper curve. So even if we look at kind of what's happened historically and say, well, is that going to continue? Well, yeah, it's actually accelerating. So that's kind of, again, why this stuff matters. Yeah.
And so these are kind of, well, I think of startups as, let's say, the lifeblood of the tech ecosystem. An ecosystem is a word that we bandy around a lot. What is a tech ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that was in the title as well, wasn't it? So I'm just going to skip over those bits. But what an ecosystem is lots of different players and lots of different arrows between them, as you see here. But we've put startups at the middle of that because we talk about startup or tech ecosystems often. But within this ecosystem includes policymakers and public body enablers, includes universities that are generating the talent and ideas and increasingly capital that fuel these ideas. There's the investors that help accelerate this. There's the strategists and researchers and the tech providers. There's so much movement between these because also if you look at the providers of the services to those startups, lots of those are former startups themselves. And so the ecosystem, why we use that word is because there are so many different pieces of the puzzle at play, and you kind of need all of them to be working at the same time to kind of really hit that high growth. And that's kind of why we try to help measure and diagnose what's going on in ecosystems in lots of different ways, because no two ecosystems are kind of the same.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say I always find this a nice mental model that you can apply to ecosystems of various different sizes. But if we talk about that, so what is a nascent ecosystem? What is an emerging one? How do you know when you go from that to growth ecosystem? Yeah, can we talk about the different stages, I suppose, of the life cycle?
Yeah, so I mean, I also put this bit in here, which is maybe a kind of follow-on of what I was just saying, but before we get to the kind of stages. But no two ecosystems are the same, and they all have their own strengths as well as unique hurdles. And there's a mix and match of any of these given things, for whether it's international expansion or the size of your local market, or whether it's your exit landscape and opportunities, or access to early stage capital or scale up capital or regulation. Like all of these different things can potentially be blockers or things to be solved. And they often kind of emerge at different stages as well. So we've kind of mapped these sort of stages of development of an ecosystem life cycle, similar to the life cycle of a startup, that they kind of you start, you maybe get seed funding, you grow a little bit, and you've got people doing every kind of job, and then as you grow, you maybe get a bit more specialization. Like you can kind of apply the same sort of mental model to ecosystems as well. And we can also understand some of the important things to measure at those different stages. Now, as I said, no two ecosystems are the same, so it's kind of a bit of a cheat sheet, but no, it's also going to be adaptable depending on your exact ecosystem. So, I mean, when we can talk through some of these pieces here, but for an emerging ecosystem, you might be starting to get your first kind of $100 million exits, or maybe your first unicorns in the ecosystem. And that can be such an important moment because it not only does it create something to look up to or aspire to for other local startups, but when you start getting these exits, you start getting this flywheel or recycling effect as well of capital and of talent that can kind of help fuel the ecosystem as it grows. And we've got these other kind of benchmarks as you move through the life cycle.
Yeah. I like that we have a bit of diversity here in what we're measuring, because you do see a lot of reports that focus on a few metrics like unicorns, let's say, to measure all different types of ecosystems, and it just doesn't necessarily apply to each stage of this life cycle. So but we'll look at that in a sec.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not relevant if you're not at that stage.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you don't have the pipeline or you can't measure, the pace at which those startups are moving from stage to stage and what you might be able to expect if you kind of create the right conditions.
And other side of the coin is probably pretty mature ecosystems who still measure those outcomes, but then, and it kind of looks good on paper, but aren't measuring other things like growth underneath or,
Yeah, you can also have ecosystems that sort of stall or, even go into decline. And so it's important to be on top of all these the stuff to be checking in to see if you've got a kind of healthy pipeline that's continuing to build and be renewed at the beginning.
And you mentioned something about how this is kind of a similar model to how we look at startup growth, from seed to growth to exit. But like a startup, I suppose, an interesting thing is that ecosystems can expand and then contract and then grow again. So it's not necessarily always this linear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the case with a lot of startups as well. Yeah. Often, you can see a company becomes a unicorn and then doesn't, and then actually it comes back again, and you can never write anybody off.
No.
And that's the same for ecosystems.
The comeback kid.
Yeah, even better story.
Yeah. Cool. So I think we're going to have a wee look at the platform now.
Yes.
Unless there's anything else we want to have a wee chat about.
No, all good. Cool. So yeah, exactly. I wanted to show what some of this looks like when we in the data, if we want to start exploring what these different stages and how you might kind of measure depending on what stage of the life cycle you're in. So a new, fairly new bit of the platform here is the funnel, which you'll see on the left-hand side in the menu. And I want to first dive into this infographic, partly because it's quite nice and easy to kind of read, but also because it is nicely customizable as well. So, on that kind of cheat sheet that I was showing before, which we will share after as well, it mentioned, maybe measuring how many startups you got at one stage or another. This does that exactly for you. So at the moment, this is actually showing AI startups. But what we can do is we can have a look at one city. So let's look at Amsterdam. That's where we are right now. And actually, State of Dutch Tech is coming out today, isn't it? So it's got some of these numbers in it. But yeah, here we can look at the number of startups that are being backed each year, the number that are at every stage of growth, and all the way through to the number of unicorns, the number of decacorns, and centacorns, even one for Amsterdam here, which you can see below here, it says booking. But what's really interesting as well is seeing these percentages on the side, because this shows you the rate at which your startups managed to get through to the next stage. So for Amsterdam, of all of the startups that get funded at seed stage, 22% successfully go on to raise that Series A. And of those that raise Series A, 25% raise Series B, and so on and so forth. So these are, useful to be able to watch, because you might, and you can also kind of compare, adding different filters on, compare against different cities or geographies, and see whether you're over-indexing in certain areas, whether you're under, do you suddenly see a big drop off at Series B to C, say, and then you can start kind of addressing some of those gaps, whether that's literally thinking, maybe we need to fill a capital gap there, or maybe we should go and talk to those startups, because underneath all of this, of course, is all of the data on the companies that are being aggregated in this analysis.
I think this is a really nice starting point, like we were talking about earlier, just to get a bird's eye view about what's happening in the ecosystem.
Drone shot, like I said earlier, a little drone shot view, yeah.
And I think as well, you mentioned there, but being able to quickly compare this to the Dutch average, for example, like are startups in Amsterdam moving faster from A to Series B than the national average, or as you say, compared to another city. But yeah, I really like this as a starting point. And even though we're talking about measuring different things based on, your life cycle stage, it still is good to know where the kind of outcomes are, like who the unicorns are, who the centicorns are, if you're at that stage. So
definitely. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat, so I'm going to answer a question while we're going as well. But yeah, people do feel free to drop them in. There was a question about how much survivorship bias is kind of involved in one of the slides that I showed. One that I didn't actually show kind of accounts for that a little bit more. So I had this in here that we maybe wanted to look at, but we have done analysis on, what percentage of startups are really those big kind of Hall of Fame outcomes, what share are good, solid, unsung hero outcomes, and then the failure rate as well. But I think what's useful to mention on that failure rate is that there can be positive outcomes of those companies as well. You can actually have a lot of people that come out of that situation, and whether it's the founders themselves that go on to immediately found something else, or people just have experience of going through that process. And we did some analysis on startup mafias. We did it of the UK, and the number of startups that had been founded by alumni of Babylon Health, which was a company that maybe didn't have as spectacular an outcome as they would have wanted, but they were a unicorn and then they weren't. But actually they had already generated this second generation of startups that was contributing to the ecosystem, and you see that time and again. So this is a really important part, is this kind of, in quotes, failure bucket as well. Yeah.
We talk a lot about the outcomes, as you say, but being able to capture, which we can capture, I suppose, with the data. The other kind of bits of impact from these companies and founder experiences, I suppose.
Yeah,
is really handy. So if we have this nice bird's eye view, the drone shot view. We should coin that term. If we have this nice drone shot view of our own ecosystem, but then we want to, as I said, actually benchmark it against another ecosystem, which I think is kind of crucial. How would we do that on Dealroom?
Yes, so we have this section here called location. So this is also fairly new within the last kind of 6 months or so. And this allows you to do exactly that of benchmarking. So do you want to give me a couple of cities that we should have a look at as comparisons?
Or
countries.
Let's go Dublin.
Okay.
Being a bit biased here.
Yeah.
Grenoble, if there's anyone French on the call, who'll kill me for the pronunciation.
Yeah. Just those two? Let's have a look. Should we
have a wee look.
All right. So we can add in those two cities, and then, I just hit compare there. And then we can very quickly have a look at some key stats about these ecosystems. So we can see that actually by combined enterprise value, Dublin is way ahead of Grenoble. So sorry for them, but actually on growth, then Dublin would be behind. We can also see some information about how much VC has been raised in 2025, the number of VC-backed startups, and there's a lot of other data in through here as well. We can also change how we want to visualize this, so we can see this spiky chart of where each of them are winning on those different topics, or we could have a look at it as a bar chart or what have you. And there are also some other nice bits through here as well, so we can dive in a little bit more into the venture capital, so split that out by stage, and we can see that it was actually at every stage that Dublin is raising more capital. But also some really nice info on academia. So on the number of funded startups that have been founded by alumni of universities in those places, we can see that Dublin universities have created over 1,000. But there's a few universities there, and I'm guessing there's only one in Grenoble. Is that?
No, there's a few engineering schools, and you have Sciences Po there, and a few different ones like that. There's a few, which is why I think
it's maybe a fairer comparison then,
yeah. And it's also a real deep tech hub. And I was curious, if you look at the spin-outs count,
yes,
Grenoble actually has more.
That is true, yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting.
198 spin-outs there compared to 182.
Yeah, but I think I think the growth point, as we said before, is really important, because this is something we covered in we really took into account when we did the index last year. We didn't just want to look at the biggest, the best ecosystems, but we really wanted to look at the ones that were growing really quickly. And some of the big name ecosystems aren't necessarily growing that much, or can stagnate, whereas you have these more emerging ecosystems that are growing a lot faster. So interesting to see this for Grenoble.
Yes, for sure. I'm just keeping an eye on the comments as well. So there was a question about what is a startup? What counts as a startup? Is it a company registration in Companies House or equivalent, or is it some other definition? So it's not we don't just count kind of any new registered company. We look at companies that are designed to grow fast. We've got some extra info on this actually we can share as well. But when we're looking at that funnel picture, really we're looking at the venture-backed or venture-backable companies. So the types of companies that, as I said, are designed to grow fast. And that's, that's kind of, we do a lot of the work in figuring out which companies those are. And sometimes it can be quite difficult to tell, particularly at the earliest stages. But it's not necessarily just a tech company. A lot of these companies are tech enabled, because tech enablement enables fast growth. But it doesn't have to be specifically tech.
And you don't always know if it is a startup until it starts growing and is a success. So it's a bit of a tricky science.
Yeah, but that's kind of what we're involved in. And what it's useful when we are doing this kind of high level view of the venture backed throughput and journey, that is very specific. So the fact that we track all the VC rounds that happen in the world, and so that allows us to then compare like for like between these ecosystems, and we don't mind when they were founded. Well, we kind of have a 1990 forward cutoff, but it's not about that they need to have been founded in the last few years, or that they need to be using AI or anything like that.
Yeah, nice. So going from the drone shot to the benchmarking, how we talk a lot about measuring and showcasing with our data. So if we wanted to, then showcase our ecosystem using this information, how would you do that?
Yes, well, the newest addition to the side menu here is this quarterly reports. Shout out to Felix on our team who has been working on this. And this is a new dashboard that's going to let you very quickly see and share some key fresh stats on your ecosystem. So do you want to choose a location for us again, Aoife?
Oh, yeah. Can we go Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, yeah. Okay, so we can very quickly see for Hong Kong some information about how much investment they raised in full year 2025. Now, the key is in the name here. It says quarterly reports, so this will be updated every quarter. As we've just finished Q4, then this is showing Q4 2025, and we've got some full year data in here. But you can see how much was raised by Hong Kong startups in 2025. The total ecosystem value, you can see a little key stat on how they rank in terms of their growth in their region. And if we go down here, we can see their quarterly investment. We can also have a look at it on an annual basis, their ecosystem value, a little breakout of the different round stages, information about their sectors and where they've raised capital in that period, and then again some of this this benchmarking. So what's cool is that all of this data was available already in Dealroom, but now you kind of don't have to add all the filters yourself. We made it a little bit easier. And we can also make some nice little reports as well. So if we sort of go to share this and download the PDF or download the PNGs, then we can make a nice little graphic
Nice.
to share that we can put on social straight away.
Yeah, very handy tool. And well, as you said, we actually just launched that, so there will be the Q2 version soon, and we've already gotten a lot of different bits of feedback from our ecosystem partners and the investors that use Dealroom, and we've been making a lot of changes. So yeah, if any of you have feedback on that, we'd be glad to hear it and take it into account for V2.
Yeah, exactly. So we just added a few extra regions, and we'll be adding more for Q1. But at the moment, 410 locations in there between different countries and different cities.
Nice.
So yeah, it makes it super easy to be able to share some success stories of your ecosystem as they're coming through.
Very cool. Thanks a million. Yeah, I really I like going from the kind of really granular stuff that you could use for internal reporting or various things to the bits you really want to make public and shout about.
Yes. I'm just looking at the chat again. There's a question there about spin-outs, I think, is there? From Laura.
Yes. Yeah, so spin-outs. We actually just did a really large report about this that came out in November called the European Spin-outs Report. So it's a topic close to our hearts, let's say.
So the question was, how are startups affiliated to the universities as spin-off or standard startup?
Perfect. So if you go onto any university profile on Dealroom, you'll see we have a couple of different types of startup data associated with university profiles. So we have spin-outs, and these are companies that really originated at the university. So could be the university has equity, could be there's a licensing agreement, or could be that the research just came from a university lab, but there is some more, kind of deeper connection between the company and the university, and you can then see that on the company profiles as well. But we also have alumni startups, right? Or alumni founded companies. This I always find really interesting, the kind of connections between universities and certain startups. It's actually very hard, I think, to capture for a lot of universities because keeping track of millions of alumni is a tricky business. But yeah, we know what founders are up to and what their background is, so we can then make the connection between these alumni startups and alumni founded companies and the university.
Yeah, and why it's relevant and makes such a big difference is I chose Oxford here, but so of their alumni, there have been 80 unicorns founded by alumni of Oxford, and they are really strong on the spin-out side as well. But if we were to only, wrong one. If we were to only count their spin-outs that are unicorns, then it would be 7.
Yeah.
So, a really big difference. And both things are really interesting to look at kind of separately. And we track all of that.
Yeah. Tracking entrepreneurship, I suppose, in general.
Yeah, all part of the ecosystem. Yeah. Different bits of the ecosystem.
Indeed. Yeah, we love this topic, so do definitely have a look at that university data and the spin-outs report as well, which I think is really good. Shall we have a chat with...
Yes, I just wanted to show one other tool actually, because I was showing lots of some of the new dashboards, but actually I wanted to show the heat map because this is the oldest kind of data visualization tool that we built, but it's still a goodie. It's an oldie but a goodie, I would say.
The OG heat map.
So it's the first thing you get to when you click on Stats and Insights, and in here it will initially show you a list of key ecosystems based on venture capital and by year, and you can see this nice heat map. But you can also filter it based on any industry. And then it will kind of refilter. But you can also edit all of the geographies in here. So you can, bin the US, and we can add in, you can do non-like for like things. So we can include London separately than all the other countries, things like that. Or you can also switch to having a look at industries instead. So if I change this to industries, and then if I do, we had a couple of people from Canada, didn't we?
Yeah.
So let's filter on Canada, and then see which sectors have been raising the most investment in Canada over time. And if we kind of hit the top of any of these columns, it will resort the data by that. So you can see which ones are more emerging or then waning and things like that. And then all of the data you can export here and do play around with it yourself, or you can change it to quarterly or monthly or number of rounds. It's a really nice kind of really powerful tool and reasonably simple to use as well. So I always want to give that one a shout out.
Yeah, I think I was saying to you as well yesterday, Orla, that we have a lot of ecosystem partners who really do use this to test assumptions about their ecosystem, in that they might have ideas about what industries are really strong for them, right, where their sector strengths are. And yeah, like it can be the case that those assumptions are not correct, right? Or there's a real up and coming sector that they should maybe prioritize over one that's waning, or think about diversifying, I suppose. So yeah, also like the OG heat map.
Yes, for sure. Super strong in climate tech in Canada, so
Cool.
That's cool.
Very nice.
But yeah,
okay.
Shall we chat to Josh?
Yes.
So we wanted to invite Josh, because we've been working together for a little while now, but also he's been kind of getting to grips with lots of this data and can tell us how it works in action, because we kind of build it and hope that people will find it useful, but he'll maybe tell us otherwise, we'll see.
Yes. The challenge here is also going to be that we had so many interesting questions that we wanted to ask Josh, and we'll have to narrow it down a wee bit for the sake of time. But hey, Josh, we can see you. Can you hear us?
I can. My mute button is working. Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Great.
Hello. Thanks for joining us. As Orla said, we've been working with you for quite a while now. So I think you started originally just using the global platform, and then late last year, we actually launched an ecosystem platform together for the Midlands. I had the pleasure of going over there once or twice, so really see a lot of the stuff that's going on in the ecosystem, and interested to get your assessment about what kind of stage of the ecosystem, let's say life cycle, the Midlands is in. How you see that developing, etc. So maybe as a first question, where would you place the Midlands ecosystem on this kind of maturity curve now? When you were looking at that, where would you put yourselves? And as a wee follow-up question, why would you say that?
So to clarify, so Midlands Innovation, who I work for, so with a group of the 8 kind of research-intensive universities in the Midlands, but we're using the platform to track the kind of wider tech ecosystem as well and the place within it of value proposition. So in terms of where we are in a maturity curve, I think we're kind of part way up it, but there's a nice long ramp in front of us we're hopefully about to go up. I can probably talk about that in a bit. So globally, I would say actually we're quite established within the kind of European UK context on that piece there. So we benchmark a lot using the platform. And as an example, so Baden-Württemberg in Germany as an economy is very, very similar to the Midlands. So automotive dominance, aerospace, and everything else, about the same number of people. And it's quite interesting. I used the platform earlier actually just to benchmark between the two, because I hadn't done it before and I don't know why. So we've got about 6,000 tech startups in the Midlands, valued about 34 billion. Of those, we've got 170 spin-outs, but actually in total we've had quite a few more spin-outs, about 355. Compare that to Baden-Württemberg, and it's about 11 million people as well, 5,000 tech startups, but 23 billion valuation, but they've got 330 spin-outs in the region. And that reflects the challenge we have in the Midlands in terms of maturity, in that we have a really strong infrastructure foundation base, good pipeline in the university context, but also more widely, as you can tell by 6,000 startups. But our challenge is actually around capital and talent, that kind of the valley of death almost in a spin-out context. So yeah, that's a long answer to a short question.
No, it's very interesting. I also didn't know about
Sorry, I didn't put the mic on there. You're on now.
Oh, no worries, no worries. I was chatting away. I was going to say very good answer. And yeah, I wouldn't have necessarily benchmarked against Baden-Württemberg. So interesting that you've done that, and you can tell us a wee bit about it. You kind of answered my next question actually, because what I was wondering about, and I think about this in relation to all of our ecosystem partners, there are so many bits of, let's say, ecosystem development that you could focus on, right? So attracting more capital, or working on talent and talent retention, or working on university innovation, which I think you've already done very well. That I imagine it can be tricky to know where to actually spend time and resources and focus. And I think you mentioned capital and talent there, but yeah, I was curious to get your take on that, like how you honed in on what the main challenge was, and yeah, what you've been kind of doing to work on it, basically.
So I guess it begins with connecting. So we're lucky in that our partnership is 10 years old now. It's £100 million of research projects, so really well established. And a lot of the organisations we work with aren't quite as established. So it's that kind of community piece first. And then actually when you have that quantum, when you are connected, when you have for example, one of the reasons we work with you guys is to have that single source of truth platform where it's all in one place and you can tell a story from it. So you've got your people assembled and connected, and then from that you can work collectively to bring in capital and talent. So on that's where we've been quite lucky securing quite significant investments around a talent development and attraction program. And actually that's one of the reasons we've got the ecosystem platform, to see how our founders then turn to serial founders and kind of track that over time. And the other bit around capital, so we've set up our own kind of patient capital company. It's a venture capitalist making its first investments, and we're working with a couple of other angel networks and funds based in the region or with interest in the region. And our kind of role in that space is to kind of de-risk it. Like from an international perspective, we're not far at all from the Golden Triangle. I mean, I can get to Oxford or Cambridge in an hour, but within the UK context, actually, there's a significant difference. So if I look at Series A, for example, we've only had 13 Series A rounds in our spin-outs. This isn't the wider tech piece, it's just our spin-outs, compared to well over 1,000 for kind of Golden Triangle spin-outs. And our average raise and average valuation is about 3 times lower in each case. However, when our spin-outs have left the region, which is one of the issues we have, they're raising 5-6 times more than they would in the region. So it's about that kind of de-risking, creating those things such as a fund you can co-invest with to bring more investment into the region, basically. And then over time, idea being that the valuations will rise and you get a kind of a kickback on that return on investment.
Yeah, I like that. I think almost every stage of the decision making that you described there was very much data driven. Basically, like you know exactly what the valuations are like and the conversion rates are like and various things like that. You mentioned the Golden Triangle. I was curious to know how, because as you say, the proximity, there's proximity to the Golden Triangle,
which is Oxford, Cambridge and London.
Yeah, Oxford, Cambridge and London. You're quite close to that. How do you try and kind of differentiate the Midlands, right, in terms of like trying to retain talent, trying to retain those companies, or capture investor attention when that's kind of on your doorstep?
It's a tough one, and apologies for his voice in the background. I'm in a public space. So firstly, it's kind of to tap into the USPs we do have. So one of those is space, grow on space. We've got 54 campuses and science parks across the region. Wetland space is a lot cheaper than even an hour south. So those kind of things. Then it's building that kind of support infrastructure around it. So we have this big Forging Ahead program, which is 16 universities involved. We've got the funds and so on. But actually in the kind of UK context as well, with UKRI, so our national research funding body, focusing on kind of the third pillar they call driving growth, so economic growth, and the industrial strategy. what we're also trying to do is align to that and show we're actually, okay, we're really good at aerospace for propulsion, for example. We lead the UK in quantum sensing and metrology. So finding out actual niches where we genuinely are distinct, and that could be because we have particular facilities or expertise, or it could just be that we've got a quantum of startups in that space that we can kind of tell the story from. So it's just finding the niches, because Oxford, Cambridge and London don't do everything.
Yeah, indeed. But I think you have found your niche. You touched on this briefly when you were talking about comparing the Midlands to Baden-Württemberg, and one of the reasons you do that is because you have a similar kind of industrial heritage and a few, industries that you focused on historically. I think there are quite a few ecosystems with similar backgrounds that are trying to diversify and grow their tech ecosystem. And I think, that's obviously something you have been doing successfully. How do you think you integrate the industrial heritage into the tech ecosystem work, if that makes sense? Because it kind of is like this decline and renewal story that we hear about a lot, and I think the Midlands is a really interesting case of this.
Yeah, I think there's a few angles you can play on it. So one of those is the space element, in that we've got lots of brownfield lands we can build, but actually in terms of the tech ecosystem and investment in particular, it's the storytelling piece, it's value proposition. So for example, there are a number of major sites which might have been AstraZeneca or Boots before, and you have a story of life sciences there. So there's kind of a wraparound where you create then a medtech park type thing. So there's a few examples of that happening across the region, but also it's reframing that narrative in the sense of, yes, it was, the world's first factory was in 1721 in Derby, which is awesome, birthplace revolution. But now it's kind of angling, well, we're doing the fourth industrial revolution. We do advanced manufacturing, and it's 20% of our GVA still. So, it's kind of shining a light on pieces that domestically, even in the UK, people don't realise. And then that gives you your narrative bit. So, and you see that in the data as well. So again, something you saw from the using Dealroom. So we've imported about 50 spin-outs. Apologies, my focus is on spin-outs. And most of them are from Imperial, Oxford and Cambridge, but it's their manufacturing sites that they've done in our region. So high-skilled jobs still, advanced manufacturing around medtech devices or energy products and stuff like that. So there's that piece in there still as well. But it's also what it gives you. So the space we started touching on earlier around some brownfield sites, we use science parks, and there's a story to it. It's not just, oh, here's a new thing with no history. It's, oh, this was, the site of this TV studio. We've got 800 production crew nearby. Those kind of stories you can tell if you've got a story to tell.
Maybe we can also actually try and answer one of the questions that's in the chat here with this example, actually, because it's from Amanda, who's asking, how do we decide geographical location for a certain company or element? Because founders and companies can list themselves in other places. And we try to basically capture all of that information. So both where a company is founded, where they are HQ'd, where their other offices are, but also that information about if they have spun out of somewhere that's elsewhere, if they've gone to university somewhere else. So the fact that it's a global database, I'm guessing, must help with being able to capture as much data as possible and tell the richest story possible for the Midlands as well, Josh.
Yeah, it does. And I do use some complementary data sets as well. I think one of the interesting things when you're working at any kind of scale with data in this context as well is having that local knowledge. So for example, you guys provide not raw data, because there's a level of curation and preparation, which is essentially cleaning it. And then me and my team and my colleagues, we have that regional insight, so we know, okay, that looks right, that doesn't. And it's been quite a good back and forth with your colleagues in the support team, where we have kind of really refined, for example, our spin-outs on them. It's accurate, and I think there's always going to be that level of preparation and cleaning. But actually, in terms of the headquarter effects and looking at, again, spin-outs, actually we didn't have much of it. We've got, I think, 7 spin-outs that have registered in London that aren't actually there, out of 355. So but it's it comes down to local knowledge. And again, that's where I imagine people on this call who are on the call, because they are in similar kind of roles, that's where you add the value to the piece of work and you do that analysis with the insight.
Maybe one last question for you. And this is hopefully something that will be helpful for some of the people in the audience. If you were dropped into another ecosystem now, and you had to work on developing it. What is one, I suppose, thing you could take from the Midlands playbook to that ecosystem?
We're still quite early on in the playbook. So I think it's the very first thing you need to do, but two things. It's the connecting bit, and we were lucky because it already existed, because things have been going for a while. But it's that initial mapping, and I guess an ecosystem bit, it's understanding the anchors and the pipeline. So what are those anchor institutions, be they universities, major corporates, actually sites, clusters, so particular science parks. In the Midlands, we have something called Myra Tech Park in Silverstone, automotive hubs, so those kind of places. And then just the next stage then is connecting them, even if it's just to get a single source of truth in terms of, oh, we say we do this, well, actually, here's the fact.
Nice. Yeah, I think, well, we agree. I also like what you mentioned around knowing who the anchors are. That's a nice term as well. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Stay on with us maybe for a wee minute, Josh, in case there are some...
Yeah, if people have questions for Josh, then feel free to put them in the chat as well. We'll put them to him. Yeah,
but thank you so much. All right, I think we have a couple of minutes now for any additional questions. We covered some as we were going along, but if you haven't had a chance to ask something yet, then now is your time. Please feel free to pop it in the chat.
In the meantime, maybe I will just share my screen and show the example of kind of what we mean by different geographies. So we could take an example of, for example, Move. I was looking at this company earlier. But yeah, this is a company that is founded in Lagos and now headquartered in Dubai. So on a very simple basis, that's one of the things that we can very quickly see. But yeah, if we were to go and do that that query again for Oxford alumni, perhaps. Are you going to, if you keep an eye on the chat and then put anything to me that comes in. But yeah, we can have a look for startups that are founded by alumni of Oxford. And then let's have a look at just those unicorns again. And you might assume, okay, Oxford's in the UK, so maybe they're all in the UK. Actually, no, there's only 14 of them that are. Yeah. And we can also then kind of exclude that from the query. We can add in different things. There's like all these different ways that you can slice and dice the data based on, where the person went to university, where the company is based, where it was founded. In here as well, you can also, if you don't want to look at Oxford University, but you want to look at Oxford and Oxford Brookes. So you could say all of the universities that are based in Oxford, those are the ones that I want to look at. So based on the university location, not just the institution. So yeah, there's loads of different ways to slice the data by geography here.
This one I really like, especially if you're trying to look at a national level, for example, and you want to easily have a query that captures all universities in Ireland or Portugal or whatever.
That would have been a better example. Actually, yes.
Still good.
Yes.
There was a question here around also capturing like decentralized innovation ecosystems, not linked to a specific place, such as the EIT ecosystem and the KICs, the knowledge and innovation communities. I mean, I suppose really specific to this question, we actually track all of the EIT ecosystem, so all the different KICs. There's EIT Health, EIT Climate. So I think we also have a general EIT tag. So yes, we do capture other types of ecosystems that aren't necessarily place-based. And we also do capture, let's say, different types of collections of locations, in the sense that we track, let's say, NATO member states or that kind of thing. So Thanks, Vasco, for that question.
Yeah, you can also search based on the portfolio of a certain investor, and that could be a university as well, or it could be a VC. So you can have a look at all of the companies that are backed by Balderton Capital and that are based in Europe, say. So all of these different types of ecosystems and different ways of grouping companies beyond just geography or sector.
Yeah. The sector ecosystem was something I was going to mention, is also looking at the defence ecosystem and who's involved in that. We've another question around how we measure success and failure. A preface to that question was what city, country, area does worst in the UK. But maybe we can just talk about success and failure more generally. I think, well, in my mind, the funnel here is useful.
Yeah.
Again.
Yes, it is. So I think, on here you can see the levels of success that are being reached. Let's say we've also got, if you just want to think about kind of really, really big success, one bit we didn't show, but we've got this dashboard here for unicorns and thoroughbreds. So unicorns are $100 billion valuation or exit, and thoroughbreds is what we call a company with at least 100 million in revenue. So this is kind of the creme de la creme of outcomes. And here you can really dive into doing some analysis on these as well. So here's a list of them, but then you can also have a look at how this looks by geography. Where are all these unicorns based? How are the new ones emerging over time? This is it by different global region, but also by country, or we can change this to city. You can do the same analysis for thoroughbreds as well, or just decacorns, or whatever you like. So on the success side, then this unicorns tab is really useful to dive into. On the question of UK cities, well, actually back in the locations bit here, we were typing in and selecting specific cities, but you can also filter by, let's have a look here, UK, and then it will just show, and let's just look at metro areas, and then it will show you all of them here. I say all, these are already a subset of ecosystems based on if they have had a certain level of outcome or raised a certain amount of money. So this is already, if you like, a marker of success to be in this list.
Yeah.
If you were to think about failure, it's more like the other places haven't produced that stuff yet, rather than that's failed.
Yeah.
But obviously in the UK, London is top here. But actually, if we organise by growth again, then you see York and Windsor, Maidenhead. We kind of make some of these more like functional ecosystem rather than kind of city limits type areas within here. So we've got, Cardiff, Newport are 15 minutes on the train from each other, and there's a lot of interconnectivity between the organisations there. So we count that as one ecosystem as well.
I think, in relation to different types of success too, something I liked about the index that we did last year is the fact that we had 3 different lenses. So there was one for global champions, and these are your mature, well-established ecosystems that everyone knows about and benchmarks themselves against. The density leaders was looking at ecosystems and how they perform per capita. So
pound for pound pricing.
Yeah. And then we also looked at rising stars, which was then taken into account growth and the kind of like economic context in these places and various things. So I don't think there's one. It's not really wise to have one leaderboard, let's say.
It's kind of back to that every ecosystem is different thing, because you can find where your strengths lie by kind of playing around with some of these tools, basically.
Yeah. And benchmarking against sensible places like the Midlands and Baden-Württemberg.
Yeah,
who knew? Okay, great. Was there any other questions? Yeah, so Elizabeth asked if we dive into the whys. So why is this area more successful than another? That's definitely something that we try and answer in some of the reports we do. So we also, work on our own insights based on the data in the platform. And I know a lot of our partners do that as well. So looking at the different policy levers that make a difference, or any specific any kind of niche in the ecosystem, I suppose, that makes a difference. But
so our research team is very happy to collaborate on anything like that. If we can dive into some of the whys, being led by the data, and try and understand the ecosystem a little bit more as well.
Yeah, nice. Great stuff.
Gavin Smith from Glasgow said we use it for a combination of insights analysis, profiling and promoting. Nice.
Yeah.
Some of the things we showed.
Yeah, if you want a masterclass in showcasing your ecosystem, you should have a look at the output from Glasgow. They have some...
Drop a link in the chat for one of your reports, Gavin, because they're pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the deep dives, Gavin, please, if you don't mind, we love them. And these are reports that Gavin and his team produced themselves based on Dealroom data, and they combine it with some other kind of intel they're getting from the ecosystem. We love them. And as I said, great example in how best to showcase the strengths of your ecosystem. Excellent. I think we've covered most of the questions.
I think so, yeah. Josh just added as well, comment as a user, the Dealroom platform is a platform, so it can be used how you like. Or, for example, we do everything from some of our acceleration tracking their cohorts to benchmarking funding rounds to holistic storytelling across verticals. Summing it up.
Couldn't say it better myself.
And Gavin's just dropped in a link, so everyone should have a read of their deep dive.
Yes, nice one. Thanks a million. Always happy to see our partners in the chat.
Yeah.
Thanks so much to everyone who joined. I know it's late in the day for some of our partners and very early for others, but we really hope it was helpful. I certainly enjoyed it. I think it's always good to kind of go back to basics and talk through the whole life cycle from beginning to end. If you do want to find out a bit more about our data or our ecosystem platform solution, please do get in touch with us. We can drop an email.
Are you Aoife at Dealroom?
I'm Aoife.Morrin.
Morrin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel free to ping me. I'm always very happy to chat. We will send around the recording and the slides as well. So we'll get them out to you in a couple of days. Looking forward to the next one. Thanks so much, and big thanks to Josh as well for joining, considering how busy he is.
Yeah, thanks so much, Josh, and thanks everyone for joining, and see you soon.